Okay. All right, so we'll start the workshop. I'll be sitting here alone, but this is a very interactive session. So, yes, welcome. The topic today is multilateralism, migration, and youth. My name is Amira Nassim, and I work for the UN Migration Agency here in New York. So it's our liaison office to the UN. I also want to give a shout out to Danielle, who's there helping with the tech stuff. And she's been helping in putting this presentation together. So today we will talk about the IOM and multilateralism. Thank you. And then a little bit about youth and migration. Then we're going to move to the interactive case study, do some breakout sessions, and then come back for a debrief. So before we start, if everybody has either their phone or laptop, we'll be using Menti throughout. So you can just scan the QR code that you see either on the screen or on the TV here. So just to, to get to know everybody a little bit better. Not working? Is the QR code working? Yeah? Yes. Okay. Sometimes zooming in a little bit helps. Or if you have a laptop or another device, you can also go on the website and enter that code. It'll take you to the right site. Okay, so the first question is just to get an idea where we all are from or came from. It is divided conveniently along IOM's regional offices. So just to see what is the nearest regional office to your country. So right now, I think, are people online also able to follow this part? Great. Okay, so Aro in Costa Rica seems to be leading, followed by Argentina one, Senegal, and Aro in Egypt. Okay, cool. The next question. Okay, Thailand just also came in. As a child, what did you want to be when you grew up? Lawyer, dancer, doctor, teacher, diplomat, president, librarian. Very nice. Okay. And then to the last question of this part is going to be just to name one thing that you're grateful for. We have family, friends, education, health, life, food, good food. I think we all identify with that one. Love, courage, public transit, opportunities, yeah. Okay, and then the last question here is going to be about IOM. Have you heard of IOM before, UN Migration? Okay. Pretty 50-50. Half have, half have not. Okay, well, we're going to start with a small video, which is going to talk about how migration is featured in the Sustainable Development Goals. And then I will briefly go over what IOM is and what we do and who we are. And then we're going to take a look at multilateralism, then some stats on youth and migration, and then we're going to do the case study. So to start, we're going to play a video. It's not very long, but it gives a good snapshot on migration and SDGs.
2030 agenda, the world faces efforts. At the same time, human mobility around the world is increasingly complex, driven and impacted by major global transformations. These risk leaving hundreds of millions of international migrants, internal migrants, and displaced persons behind. This is 1 in every 8 people in the world. We know much more than we used to about what human mobility is and what its impacts are. Migration contributes to poverty reduction, increased innovation and entrepreneurship, and investment in businesses and human capital. Remittances finance sustainable development. In 2022, remittances to developing countries reached $626 billion USD. They are the largest source of external finance flows to low and middle-income countries other than China. Migration supports innovation and entrepreneurship. 36% of high-tech companies are founded by migrants, including Google, eBay, and Intel. Safe and regular migration pathways are central to growth and prosperity. A recent study showed that every additional 1% of immigration can boost GDP growth in destination countries by 2%. However, these benefits are not guaranteed, and the contributions that migrants and displaced populations can make to society continue to be hindered in multiple ways. Migration remains unsafe. Migrant workers around the world are often hired for dangerous work and have limited access to social protection or health care. Digital inequalities hold migrants' entrepreneurship back. 60 million refugees and IDPs do not have reliable internet and mobile connectivity. These negative outcomes are avoidable. Managed well, human mobility can be a cornerstone of sustainable development, prosperity, and progress, and can be a central element of the rescue plan for the SDGs. People on the move are part of the solution. We need bold transformation. We must act now.
All right, so IOM, we are the UN Migration Agency. We were established in 1951, became a related agency in 2016. So we're part of the UN system officially now, and we are the leading intergovernmental organization promoting humane and orderly migration for the benefit of all. So often people ask, who is a migrant? How do you define migration, migrants? For us, the working definition is often that anybody who's on the move. So whether it's short or long distance, whether it's temporary or permanent, but we serve all migrants. Then in terms of what do we do, here are 4 areas that we work on. So international cooperation and partnerships, migration management, crisis response, and then data research and policy. We work to ensure that migration is managed in a safe and orderly way so that we can promote international cooperation on migration issues. We also assist in search for practical solutions to migration challenges and provide humanitarian assistance to people in need, including refugees and internally displaced people. IOM's footprint is pretty large. We serve, currently the statistics is 281 million people on the move. We have presence in 171 countries, and we have 175 member states and almost 20,000 staff. So that statistics of 281 million migrants is approximately 3.6% of the world population, which, when you put it differently, that 1 in 30 is a migrant. And I'm sure a lot of us in this room are either migrants, have been migrants, or know somebody who is. So the next slide is going to look at IOM and the SDGs. The video in the beginning kind of covered the majority of it in a snapshot. I do want to highlight the SDG 10.7, which is to facilitate orderly, safe, and responsible migration and mobility of people. So when we talk about migration, SDG 10, which is reducing inequalities, is often considered the quote-unquote home for migration. But of course, across all of the SDGs, migration and migrants are taken into consideration, and we can do a lot of work. Often when we talk about, well, why 10, reducing inequalities, one way to look at it is that it also allows us to have a very look at the intersecting aspects of migration and address it in a more holistic way. And then a very quick look at the multilateral system, since it's in the title of the workshop. What is multilateralism? What do we mean by the multilateral system? As we know, when something is done unilaterally, it's an independent action. When it's bilateral, there's two parties. So multilateralism is really a process of coordinating relations between three or more parties. So at the UN, it's three or more states, often in accordance to certain principles. So it's both a method of cooperation as well as a form of organization of the international system. Another word is that we keep hearing is the reference to international system. And with that, we mean the network of states, organizations, and individuals that interact at a large or global scale. So in short, the idea with multilateralism, which is then enacted through the multilateral system, is that we can pursue common objectives and solve shared problems. So in practice, what it looks like is joint programming, pooling of funds, and sharing of expertise, taking into consideration different perspectives, and so on. So now we've covered a bit of IOM and a bit of multilateralism. We do have a section that we're going to go on to, which is going to be about youth and migration. I did want to mention that multilateralism, I cannot not sit here and say that the UN obviously is an excellent example of multilateralism. There you have 193 member states that come together to discuss different issues, like now during the General Assembly, which has taken place over the past couple of weeks, with the high-level week just concluding. And there you have, as I mentioned, 193 member states and then 2 observers, those being Vatican City and Palestine. So youth and migration, again, if you go back to the same QR code with the Menti, here we have 5 questions, which is a little bit along the lines of a migration trivia. So the first question is, how many international migrants are there in the world today? Is everybody able to get back on the same QR code or page? Okay. Very good. So far, nobody has said 50. And we have the most. Can we? Yes. Oh, it's okay. Thank you. Yes, most are on the 281, which is the correct number. The second question is, when we talk about young people and youth, what is the UN definition of youth as per the UN Youth Strategy? The options are 15 to 24, 18 to 30, 10 to 25, 18 to 24, or 20 to 35. So far, the most answers have been in the 15 to 20, 18 to 30. So the correct answer is, I can't see here, yeah. We have this, so according to the UN, youth strategy is 18 to 24. We'll come to the fact later about different definitions by different entities or regional groups or other. The third question is, what percentage of young people aged 10 to 24 live in developing countries? 90, 50, 78, 42, or 65? So we have a tie between 42 and 78. The correct answer is 90%. And then what percentage of international migrants are female? 62, 48, 36, 88, or 12? Here, okay, so we're thinking that majority are women or female. It's almost 50%, 50-50, so 48%. And then the last question here is, how many young migrants are there in the world? Is it 32 million, 17 million, 6 million, 143 million, or 68 million? So the largest number has the most votes. It's 32 million. All right, so we will look at some more facts in terms of youth and migration before we go on to our case study. So IOM, currently we don't have an official definition of who is a migrant. That we do have, certainly, of who is a young person. So we've used 15 to 24, for example, in one of our flagship products, which is called Essentials of Migration Management 2.0, which is basically, there's a whole chapter. It's a book with examples, best practices, and there's a whole chapter on youth and migration. Some, as we saw before, the examples in the trivia were taken from existing definitions on youth. And later on, towards the end of the workshop, we'll try to see what we collectively think that would be an appropriate definition of youth, according to how we're feeling today. So obviously, migration will continue to be a lived experience for many, many people, and a growing number of people, particularly young people. And it's often driven by complex and intersecting factors. Here we're going to look at, you have a snapshot of the young people on the move per region. So there you can see that Africa is number 1, followed by Oceania, Latin America and the Caribbean, Asia, Northern America, and then Europe. In terms of drivers of migration, why people move, we could have a whole workshop on that alone, but here are 8 factors that often drive people to move. And we've seen during this General Assembly, a lot of discussion has been around climate change, climate-induced migration. Again, IOM has worked a lot on this topic. And at the end, we're going to share with you a resource package, which has a link to our website where you can find publications and resources, as well as there's going to be a link to our data center, where you have our different initiatives around data, including on climate-induced migration. Then obviously education is skills development, job opportunities, asylum seeking, family reunification, better opportunities in different forms, whatever that means for that individual at a given time. So then when we talk about migration management, like I mentioned, the book or publication called Essentials of Migration Management. What it means, what it looks like, and why is it important. So migration management is a set of principles and practices that are meant to offer guidance while allowing practitioners the freedom to respond to the challenges at hand. So the focus is on research and practical answers. And at IOM, we work with relevant country or regional offices to contextualize these principles and practices. So, for example, in countries of origin, we promote access to decent jobs. And then in countries of destination, we work on intercultural exchange and to promote integration. So also on the screen, you see more information on in terms of origin and destination. And of course, there's also different programs and assistance and research done in the area of transit countries as well. So that's about my youth and migration more directly. And then one area or strategy that guides our work on youth is the UN youth strategy. It has these 5 priority areas, which are engagement, participation, and advocacy. 2, informed and healthy foundations. 3 is economic empowerment through decent work. 4 is youth and human rights. 5 is peace and resilience building. So basically, what this strategy does, it's been developed by multiple agencies in a joint working group. And that joint working group has not only drafted, but it has also piloted the strategy in multiple different countries. It supports a high-level steering committee, which is UN officials at the highest level that come together to take stock of what the UN youth work is and how it's going. There's progress reports. You can see how different UN entities are doing statistically from year to year. So there's really a good website, for example, for more information to go check out some of their reports. But the strategy, in short, aims to facilitate increased impact and expanded global, regional, and country level action in order to address the needs and build the agency and advance the rights of young people. Also, one big area is to ensure that the engagement and participation of young people in the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. So that is pretty much my last slide, second to last slide before the case study. The next one is just to state the obvious, which is that youth have a very important role in advocating for safe, orderly, and regular migration. So now we'll get to the case study. Here, I'll allow a little bit more time than for the previous part, so everybody can get online through the QR code or through the website. So I'll explain what we're going to do. The case study is about 5 actionable recommendations. So first, and the QR code will be shared again very soon. First, we're going to construct a migrant profile. That's something we're going to do together as a group, both here in person and online. And after that, we are going to be divided into breakout groups, and there we'll draft 5 actionable recommendations from the group in which you have been placed to an imaginary migration advisory board, and then we'll get together at the end for a debrief. So the goal of this exercise is to think about how to create a better future for migrants. And the next slide will show the question which we're going to be answering, which is how do you propose that your counterpart entity helps reduce inequalities experienced by our migrant? When we say our migrant, that is the migrant profile that we're going to create in just about a minute. So after that step, we have a migrant profile. And then we're going to think about this question through the lens of your counterpart entity, which you will also see on the screen in a moment. I know can seem like there's a couple of different moving pieces. So we have also created a case study guide, which just has this question, the guiding questions for inspiration if you need, as well as the groupings. And it's going to be dropped in the Zoom. And then here in the room, I can put it on my iPad. So if you need to refer to it. And then once we go into the groups, we will have 15 minutes to draft 5 recommendations. And at the beginning, it would be good if you can pick a note taker. And that person, by the assistance of the group, will take notes of the 5 actionable recommendations that you will then later submit through Mentimeter. And the idea here is to put yourself as young people who care about the cause, in the shoes of somebody who is from that entity, which you will have in a moment, and think what are 5 impact-oriented recommendations that you would make to a migration advisory board. What are 5 things that you want to bring forward as youth and say, this is what we recommend, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now finally, let's construct the migrant profile. It's going to be the same QR link again. There's going to be 5 questions. And it will result in this migrant profile that we're all going to be keeping in mind when we draft our recommendations. Is everybody more or less online? Maybe we'll wait just a couple of more seconds. All right. So from these options, we'll pick what age is our migrant. So far, we have a tie. So it does seem like our migrant is on the younger side of this scale. We'll give it maybe 5 more seconds. Well, so I think the range was 19 to 22, correct? Yeah. Thank you for that. Hard to follow from this side. Okay, so we have here female, male, or other. What is the sex of the migrant? Nine female, 7 male. We'll give it 10 more seconds, and then we will go forward with female unless something drastically changes. Okay, so our migrant is a 15 to 22-year-old female. The question is the migrant traveling alone? Yes or no? I think this is the most clear answer we have had. The migrant is traveling alone. Well, okay, so they are traveling alone. The question is, the 4th one is that do they speak the language of the country where they're migrating to proficiently so they can interact day to day very easily. Okay, so no. So far, she is 15 to 22 years old, traveling alone, and does not speak the language of the country destination. This is the last question. Do they know anyone in the country where they are migrating to? Also a pretty clear no. Okay, so now we have our migrant profile. So if everybody can make a note of that, we can also write in a paper and stick it here, but people online, especially. So the age group is 15 to 22, female, traveling alone, doesn't speak the language, and doesn't know anybody at the destination. And now we're gonna divide into breakout groups. There are 10 different breakout groups. Here you can see them. And again, we have a PDF, or actually not a PDF, for facility of access. It's a link. You don't have to download anything. You can just follow the link that has the instructions. So it will have the main question, the questions for inspiration. It will have this graphic and all the instructions again. But let's say that you're placed in group 1, which is UN officials. So then this is you in your group have 15 minutes to draft recommendations to UN officials answering the question. And if you have any questions about the exercise or the case study, you can come to me or write in the chat on Zoom. So you will either be speaking to UN officials or the newly established UN Youth Office, national government in the country of origin, national government in the country of destination, local government, a civil society organization, an international non-governmental organization, a local non-governmental organization, regional youth network, or a local youth network. And same thing is if you're placed in a group and you're not entirely sure what would be an example of something that fits in that group, you can drop a question in the chat or come and ask us, Danielle or I. So far, is there any questions before we start dividing into breakout groups? No? Okay, I think here in person we can do 2 different groups, and then online I think Anas and Danielle will sort people into groups. Yes. Sah?
Yeah, can you?
Oh, so okay, there's a Zoom link that has been shared. Okay, so if everybody can just go to that Zoom link, that's how we will be able to divide you into different groups. Okay. Okay, so we will have this discussion and drafting recommendations for 15 minutes. And there's 2 links. One is to the Zoom to be in a breakout group, and the other one is to the resource, not the resource package, sorry, to the case study package. Is that all working okay? Let's see. أنس الزوم لينك بيشتغل هلا؟
نعم.
اوكي. وين هن عم بيسألوا منين بدهم يلكوها؟ should be there. اوكي 3-0 Okay.
We can read it now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so in this room, while we sort out the tech side of it, maybe we can divide it like in the middle from here. So this side is one group and this side is another group. بلشت تحطهم بالبريك sessions ولا لا عشان نعرف أي جروب؟
هم كلهم هنا مع breakout.
اوكي بس اشوف اي بريك جروب نعمل للناس اللي موجودين معنا. Okay, so let's do this. From this side to this side, you'll be group 10. And from this half to the window, group 9. And then we'll start to divide online from 1 onwards. So basically group 10.
Linked with the,
Say again?
anybody is linked? I'm not linked. I don't know.
No.
No, in person you don't need Zoom. Only online they will need Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah. So here we can somehow, like from about here, this side is going to be talking to local youth network, and from here to this side to a regional youth network. And I know that these networks can be a little bit like more vague than thinking about, oh, UN officials, it's kind of more clear maybe. But if you kind of, I don't know, form, I don't know how you want to sit, that it works out, a circle or just face each other, then we can have a quick chat about examples, if that would be helpful. Granted, many of you probably already work in the area, might even run your own group, so yeah. So local youth network and regional youth network.
Can you see the questions again?
Yeah, so that one, you can, for that, there was a link as well. Let me see.
We'll show it on.
Okay, we'll project it there as well. Yes. Let me ask Ali.
Hello, regional.
1 second. Ali? Ali? Can people go outside with a breakout session and come back in? No. Can you? Oh, okay. No problem. We have to stay within the room. So if, let's leave it here, yeah, we can try to do like, yeah, more like towards the, yeah, end here, and then this one more towards here. You have to be a little bit creative, I'm sorry. We're just trying to like.
Let's make it.
Two different, just face each other, yeah. So this side turns that way, that side turns this way. I'm here already. Maybe if you can go. Or straight downwards. Yeah. Actually, given the room and that we have enough people, let's do 4 groups. So instead of dividing in half, we'll divide in 4. So now that has changed, you will still be 10. Did somebody already strongly identify the group as a group 9? Okay, so
We're 9.
you're 9. Then you will be 8, which is a local NGO. And then you will be 7, which is international NGO. So non-governmental organizations at a international level versus at a local level. But what I'll do is I'll pass by each group to make sure that everything is clear, because some of the terminology can be a little bit UN. So yes. Let me just check in quickly with Danielle and us, and then I'll start. Unless you probably already, because you are local youth network. You got it? Or yes?
And so we're coming for the solution.
Yeah, so 5 actual one with paper, who will just like teach
So if you guys go in the chat and click the link, you guys,
So something that if you were to
now
have
I do
your
here.
advisory board,
You guys hear me?
well, you want them from young people on the table.
If you guys click on the link in the chat, you can start talking about the questions
Then,
and
yeah.
select one speaker to vote later on. So I again.
So one is to provide mental health services, understanding culture shock, and what you will experience mentally throughout the experience. That's one recommendation. Very good. I think because of some of the issues that we are experiencing, and in the interest of time, what we'll do is that we will have you go to the resource package and feedback form and just plug all 5 there. Again, I'm sorry, it was a little bit, didn't work out exactly as planned, but
Don't worry.
thank you. So yeah, here you have a resource package to all of the things I mentioned earlier, the essentials of migration management, the website, the data center, link to the UN youth strategy. I don't know how many people were aware that the UN has a youth strategy and how you can use it in your work, but that's a very interesting conversation that we can maybe have later. There's also the forum. We would love to hear from you how you found this workshop, what we can do better, as well as that's where you can plug in your recommendations, which we will compile. And maybe we can find a way to put this somewhere online so you can access it later as well, in case the QR code didn't work for you right now or you don't have access to another device. I do want to show you one more video and ask you to pay attention to this awareness test. This will be our last slide for today. So if everybody can just focus for a moment. That would be great. The video is not playing. Oh. Can you bring it from the beginning? And maybe from the beginning, please. Okay.
This is an awareness test. How many passes does the team in white make?
Go!
The answer is 13. But did you see the moonwalking bear?
Go! Yeah, so that's the note that I want to end on, that it's easy to miss something we're not looking for. We don't know what we don't know. And that's why it's very, very important to be intentional about the way we do our programming and our approach to any topic, but especially youth and migration. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for participating. Ali? Ali?
Stop the stream.